The envelope falls from Evelyn's trembling hands, scattering $100 bills across the marble floor of Christian Brooks' office. Her dark brown eyes, usually so carefully guarded, are wide with shock as she stares at the man behind the mahogany desk. The most dangerous crime boss in Chicago, the man she cleans for every day, the man she's been protecting without him ever knowing. You thought I wouldn't find out. Christian's voice is dangerously quiet as he rises from his chair, his tall frame casting a shadow across the money littering the floor. You thought I wouldn't discover that the Lombardi family has been trying to buy your loyalty for 3 months? Evelyn's heart hammers against her ribs. Her mind races through the threatening phone calls, the men who cornered her outside her mother's apartment. The promises of money she desperately needs but could never accept, not if it meant betraying him. Mr. Brooks, I can explain. She starts, but he's already moving around the desk, his expensive Italian shoes crunching the bills beneath his feet.
Can you?
He stops mere inches from her, close enough that she can smell his cologne. See the storm brewing in his steel gray eyes. Then explain why you've been meeting with my enemies. Explain why you never told me they approached you. Explain. His voice breaks suddenly, and something flashes across his face. That Evelyn has never seen before. Not anger, something far more vulnerable. Explain why you would make me believe you were one of the few people in this world I could trust. The words hit Evelyn like a physical blow. Because he doesn't know, he doesn't understand that every second of silence, every secret she kept was to protect him. 6 months earlier, Evelyn Davis had perfected the art of being invisible. At 28 years old, she moved through Christian Brooks' penthouse like a ghost. Silent, efficient, unnoticed. Her dark skin gleamed with a light sheen of perspiration as she polished the floor to ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Her natural coils pulled back into a neat bun that highlighted the elegant line of her neck and the determined set of her jaw. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the most exclusive building in Chicago's Gold Coast. Everything screamed money and power, from the original Besatt painting in the living room to the custom Italian leather furniture that probably cost more than Evelyn would earn in 5 years. 5 years of working 3 jobs just to keep her mother's medical bills paid and her younger brother in community college. Miss Davis. Evelyn's hand froze mid-polish. She hadn't heard him approach, hadn't heard anything over the classical music playing softly through hidden speakers. Slowly, she turned to face Christian Brooks. He stood in the doorway of his home office, 6 feet 3 inches and of controlled danger wrapped in a Tom Ford suit. His dark hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and his gray eyes were studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. Yes, Mr. Brooks. She kept her voice carefully neutral. Professional. In the 6 months she'd worked here, they'd barely exchanged more than necessary pleasantries. The study needs attention. My associates were careless last night. Translation: someone had bled on his antique Persian rug, and she needed to make the evidence disappear. Evelyn had learned the coded language of working for a man whose business dealings existed in shadows and whispers. Of course, I'll see to it immediately. She gathered her supplies and headed toward the study, acutely aware of his gaze following her. She'd always been invisible to men like Christian Brooks, men who existed in a world of power and privilege so far removed from her reality, they might as well be different species. Except lately, she'd felt his attention on her, subtle things. The way he seemed to time his morning coffee to when she was cleaning the kitchen. How he'd started asking her preference on small things, whether she preferred the jasmine or a lavender cleaning solution, if the temperature was comfortable for her. Small considerations that probably meant nothing to him, but felt like earthquakes in her carefully ordered world. The study was as bad as she'd expected. Dark stains marked the cream-colored rug, and the metallic scent of blood hung in the air despite the open windows. Evelyn set to work with practiced efficiency, her mind deliberately blank as she scrubbed away evidence of violence. She was so focused on her task that she didn't hear him enter until his shadow fell across the rug. You never ask questions. His voice was contemplative, curious. Evelyn sat back on her heels, meeting his gaze steadily. It's not my place to ask questions, Mr. Brooks. Most people in your position would be terrified, or at least curious. He moved to the window, his profile sharp against the afternoon light. You're neither. I need this job. The words came out more honest than she intended. Whatever you do in your business is your concern. I'm here to clean your home. Nothing more. Something flickered in his expression, respect maybe, or intrigue. And if I told you this stain came from a man who tried to betray me, who sold information to my enemies? Evelyn's hand stilled, but she didn't look away. Then I'd say he made a choice, and choices have consequences. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to treat this stain before it sets permanently. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A real laugh, not the cold, controlled sound she'd heard him use with his associates. You're either the bravest woman I've met or the most practical. I can't afford to be anything else, Mr. Brooks. She returned to scrubbing, hoping he'd take the hint and leave. Instead, he crossed to his desk and opened a drawer. When he returned, he held an envelope. Your mother's medical bills. I'm aware she's been in treatment for lupus. Evelyn's head snapped up, her heart suddenly pounding. How do I know everything about the people who enter my home? He placed the envelope on the table beside her. Consider it a bonus. You've been exemplary. She stared at the envelope like it might explode. Pride warred with desperate need in her chest. I can't accept you can, and you will. His tone broke no argument. Unless you'd prefer I find someone else to handle my housekeeping. It wasn't really a question. Evelyn understood the language of power well enough to recognize a command disguised as an offer. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. The words tasted like surrender and salvation all at once. He nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. Christian. Excuse me. When we're alone, call me Christian. Mr. Brooks makes me feel like my father, and that's not a comparison I appreciate. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving Evelyn staring at an envelope that contained more money than she'd earn in 6 months, and a first name that felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. She didn't know it then, but that moment, that small intimacy of a name, would change everything. Will Evelyn accept Christian's help? What will this mean for their carefully professional relationship? Keep reading to discover how a simple act of kindness begins to blur the lines between employer and something far more dangerous. The phone call came 3 weeks later at 2 o'clock in the morning. Evelyn jerked awake in her small studio apartment in Pilsen, her heart racing as she grabbed her cell phone from the nightstand. The screen showed an unknown number, but some instinct made her answer. Miss Davis. The voice was unfamiliar, smooth and cold. We need to talk about your employer. Evelyn sat up, fully awake now, dread coiling in her stomach. Who is this? A friend? Someone who can make your financial problems disappear? Your mother's medical bills? Your brother's tuition? Your own student loans from that nursing degree you never finished? The voice paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. All of it gone. You'd never have to scrub floors again. What do you want? Evelyn kept her voice steady despite the ice spreading through her veins. Information, Christian Brooks' schedule, security codes, names of his associates, simple things really for someone in your position. You want me to betray him? Not a question. Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone. We want you to be smart. The Brooks empire is crumbling whether you help us or not. The Lombardi family is taking over Chicago's underworld. You're just a maid. Why go down with a sinking ship when you could be compensated for your cooperation? Evelyn's mind raced. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. The Lombardi family. She'd heard Christian mention them, always with a cold edge to his voice. They were rivals, dangerous, ambitious. I'm not interested. She forced the words out past the tightness in her throat. Think about it. We'll call again. And Miss Davis, if you tell Brooks about this conversation, your mother's hospital might experience some unfortunate complications with her care. We'd hate for anything to happen to Barbara Davis in room 347. Such a lovely woman. The line went dead. Evelyn sat frozen in her bed, her dark skin clammy with cold sweat in the warm apartment. They knew her mother's room number. They knew everything, and she couldn't tell Christian. Couldn't risk them following through on their threat. She spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across the water-stained plaster, making a decision that would define everything that came after. The next morning, Evelyn arrived at the penthouse early. Christian was already awake, standing in his kitchen in a black t-shirt and expensive sweatpants, his hair damp from a shower. The casual domesticity of the scene made her chest ache with something she refused to name. "You're early." He glanced at the clock on the stove. "It's barely 6. Couldn't sleep." The truth, if not all of it. Thought I'd get a head start. He studied her face with those unsettlingly perceptive gray eyes. "You look tired. Are you feeling well?" The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid her. "I'm fine, Mr. Mayor." Christian. His name still felt strange on her tongue, intimate in a way that made her hyper-aware of how alone they were.
Coffee.
He was already pouring a second cup, adding cream and 2 sugars without asking, because somehow he noticed how she took her coffee. Evelyn accepted the mug, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm, and from the way Christian's eyes darkened, he felt it, too.
Thank you.
She took a sip, using the moment to compose herself. "I wanted to thank you again for helping with my mother's bills. The doctors say the new treatment is working."
I'm glad.
He leaned against the counter, his gaze never leaving her face. "You work hard, Evelyn. Harder than anyone I know. You deserve to have some of that burden lifted." The kindness in his words made her want to cry, made her want to confess everything about the threatening phone call, but she wouldn't. "I should get to work." She sat down the barely touched coffee and retreated before she did something foolish. But over the following weeks, retreat became impossible. Christian started working from home more often. He'd appear in whatever room she was cleaning, ostensibly to take calls or review documents, but she felt his attention like a physical touch. They'd talk carefully neutral conversations about books, music, the city, never about his business or her growing fear because the calls kept coming. Different numbers, different voices, but always the same message. Betray Christian Brooks or face consequences. And Evelyn kept refusing. She started taking different routes to work, looking over her shoulder, jumping at shadows. The stress carved hollows under her eyes and stole her appetite, but she told herself it was fine. She could handle this. Then one evening, everything changed. Evelyn was cleaning Christian's bedroom, a task she usually completed when he wasn't home, but he'd asked her to do it before his evening meeting. She was changing the sheets on his massive bed when she heard raised voices from the hallway. "You're being paranoid, Christian." A man's voice unfamiliar. "The Lombardi are contained. Diego is dead." Christian's voice was cold. "They tortured him for 3 days before putting a bullet in his skull. That's not contained." Evelyn froze, her hands gripping the Egyptian cotton sheets. "We'll increase security. They have someone inside. Someone close enough to know our movements." Christian's footsteps approached the bedroom. "I trust no one until we find the leak." The door opened before Evelyn could move. Christian stopped short, clearly having forgotten she was there. Behind him stood 2 men she recognized as his closest associates, both armed, both staring at her with undisguised suspicion. "Evelyn." Christian's voice was carefully controlled. "Could you give us a moment?" "Of course." She abandoned the half-made bed and moved toward the door, but one of the men blocked her path. "Maybe she should stay," he said, his hand resting casually on the gun at his hip. "We're looking for leaks, boss. Who has more access to your private life than your maid?" Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Her gaze flew to Christian, finding him watching her with an expression she couldn't read.
Victor.
Christian's voice was a warning.
Move.
"She could be." "I said move." The command in his voice made Victor step aside, but Evelyn felt the weight of suspicion follow her as she hurried from the room. Her hands shook as she gathered her cleaning supplies, her mind screaming at her to run, to quit, to get as far from this world as possible. But she couldn't, not when Christian was in danger. Not when she was possibly the only thing standing between him and betrayal. She was hiding in the laundry room, trying to calm her racing heart when Christian found her. "Evelyn." He closed the door behind him, sealing them in the small space that suddenly felt impossibly intimate. I apologize for Victor. He's paranoid by nature. It's fine. She couldn't look at him. He's right to be suspicious. You should be careful who you trust. I am careful. He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. That's why I know you're not the leak. Her eyes snapped to his face. How can you be sure? Because in 6 months, you've never asked me a single question about my business. Never shown curiosity about my meetings or my associates. You treat my home like a sanctuary, not an intelligence gathering opportunity. His hand came up, his fingers gentle as they tilted her chin up. And because when I look at you, I see honor, integrity, loyalty. If he only knew. Tears burned behind Evelyn's eyes, but she blinked them back. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, the touch achingly tender. I know you work yourself to exhaustion to take care of your family. I know you have a degree in nursing you couldn't finish because your mother got sick. I know you read Vincent Thompson and listen to Grace Flannery when you think no one's paying attention. I know Christian, his name came out broken. She couldn't hear this. Couldn't let herself feel what was building between them. This isn't. We can't. Can't what? He was so close now their breath mingled. Can't acknowledge what's been growing between us for months. Can't admit that you're the first person in years who makes me feel like something other than a monster. You're my employer. I'm your maid. That's all this can be. Is it? His hand slid into her hair, his fingers gentle against her scalp. Because when I look at you, Evelyn Davis, I don't see a maid. I see the bravest, strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever met. I see someone who makes me want to be better than I am. I'm not brave. The confession tore from her.
I'm terrified.
Every single day, I'm terrified of me, of what you make me feel. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. For a long moment, Christian just stared at her, something like wonder dawning in his eyes. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered with a curt, "What?" Then his expression went ice cold.
When?
Where? He listened for another moment, then ended the call. When he looked at Evelyn again, the man who touched her so tenderly was gone, replaced by the crime boss who ruled Chicago's underworld. I have to go. A situation. He was already moving toward the door. Go home, Evelyn. Lock your doors. Don't answer for anyone you don't know.
Christian, what?
Promise me. He gripped her shoulders, his eyes intense. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. He held her gaze for another heartbeat, then pressed a quick, fierce kiss to her forehead, and was gone. Evelyn stood alone in the laundry room, her heart racing, her lips tingling where he'd kissed her, her mind screaming, warning she couldn't afford to heed because she was already in too deep, already feeling things she had no right to feel, already willing to sacrifice everything to keep him safe. Christian is starting to see Evelyn as more than just his maid. But danger is closing in from all sides. What situation just called him away? And how long can Evelyn keep her deadly secret? Continue reading to discover how loyalty and love collide in the most dangerous way possible. The men grabbed Evelyn outside her mother's hospital 3 nights later. She'd just finished visiting her mother, who was finally showing real improvement thanks to the treatment Christian's money had funded. Evelyn had been walking to the bus stop, lost in thought about the way Christian had looked at her in the laundry room when a black SUV pulled alongside her. 2 men got out. Before she could scream, one had clamped a hand over her mouth, and they were forcing her into the vehicle. Don't fight, a voice hissed in her ear. We just want to talk. They drove her to an abandoned warehouse in back of the yards, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. When they finally dragged her out of the SUV, she found herself face to face with a man in an expensive suit who radiated cold menace. Miss Davis, I'm disappointed. He circled her like a predator. We've been very patient, very generous with our offers, and yet you continue to refuse. I told you I'm not interested in betraying Mr. Brooks. Evelyn fought to keep her voice steady. Interesting choice of words. Betraying? The man smiled, and it was like watching a snake bare its fangs. That implies loyalty. Loyalty to a man who will never see you as anything more than the help. A man whose world will crush you eventually. You don't know anything about him, don't I? Christian Brooks is a killer, Miss Davis. A criminal. He's destroyed families, ruined lives, and you protect him. The man shook his head. Your loyalty is touchingly misplaced. What do you want? Evelyn demanded. His schedule for next week, the security codes to his penthouse, and the names of his newest associates. The man pulled out a phone and showed her a photo. Her brother leaving his college campus. Or maybe we should have this conversation with Diego instead. Such a promising young man.
Would be a shame if something happened to him.
Terror clawed at Evelyn's throat. Don't you touch him. Don't you dare. Then give us what we want. Evelyn looked at the photo of her brother, then back at the man threatening him. She thought about Christian, about the way he'd touched her face, the way he'd kissed her forehead, the way he'd trusted her, and she made her choice.
No.
The man's expression darkened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Evelyn lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed. I won't help you hurt him. You can threaten me all you want, but I won't betray Christian Brooks. For a long moment, the man just stared at her. Then he smiled again, and this time it was almost admiring. Loyalty like yours is rare, Miss Davis. Foolish, but rare. He nodded to his men. Take her home. And Miss Davis, this conversation never happened. If you tell Brooks, we'll know, and your brother will pay the price. They blindfolded her for the drive back, dumping her 3 blocks from her apartment. Evelyn stumbled home on shaking legs, her mind reeling. She couldn't tell Christian, couldn't risk Diego, but she also couldn't let Christian walk into whatever trap the Lombardi were planning. She spent the rest of the night pacing her tiny apartment, trying to figure out a way to protect everyone she loved without getting them killed in the process. The next morning, she arrived at the penthouse to find Christian waiting for her.
We need to talk.
His expression was serious, almost grim. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Did he know? Had they told him somehow? But he led her to his office and gestured for her to sit. I'm increasing your security.
What? Why?
Because the Lombardi are escalating. They're targeting anyone close to me.
His jaw tightened.
I won't risk them using you to get to me. Christian, I'm just your housekeeper. They wouldn't. You're not just anything. He crouched in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. Evelyn, you have to understand. In my world, everyone I care about becomes a target, and he stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. I care about you more than I should, more than is safe for either of us. Evelyn's breath caught. Christian, I know this is insane. I know I have no right to feel this way about you. You deserve so much better than a man like me. A man whose hands are stained with blood, whose enemies would tear you apart to hurt him. His grip on her hands tightened. But I can't make myself stop. Can't make myself stay away from you. Tears burned Evelyn's eyes. She wanted to tell him everything about the threats, the kidnapping, her desperate attempt to protect him. But Diego's face flashed through her mind, young and innocent and vulnerable. This can't happen, she said instead, pulling her hands free. You're right. I don't belong in your world. Whatever you think you feel for me, it's just proximity. Familiarity, it's not real. Evelyn, I should quit. The words tore from her. This has gotten too complicated. I'll find another job, and you can find another housekeeper, and we can both go back to our separate lives. Is that what you want? Christian stood, his expression unreadable. To walk away from this from us?
No. God, no.
But what choice did she have? It's what's smart, she said quietly. Then you're braver than I am. He turned away, his shoulders rigid, because I can't seem to make the smart choice where you're concerned. Evelyn stood, preparing to leave, to walk out of his life before she got him killed with her weakness. But as she reached the door, Christian spoke again. The first time I saw you, really saw you. You were cleaning blood from my study. You didn't flinch, didn't judge, didn't ask questions. You just did what needed to be done. And I thought, here is someone who understands the world isn't black and white, someone who sees the shades of gray. He turned back to her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. I've spent my whole life being feared, Evelyn, being treated like a monster. But when you look at me, I don't see fear. I see something else. Something I don't have a name for, but makes me feel human again. Christian, please don't. I'm not asking you to love me.
I'm not even asking you to stay.
His voice was rough with emotion. I'm just asking you to be honest. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us. Tell me and I'll let you go. Evelyn stood frozen, torn between self-preservation and truth, between protecting him and protecting her heart. Then her phone rang. She pulled it from her pocket with shaking hands, saw an unknown number, and her blood ran cold. Answer it, Christian said quietly. Put it on speaker. Evelyn hesitated, but something in his expression told her he already knew. Somehow he knew, she answered, her thumb hovering over the speaker button. Hello, Miss Davis. We're disappointed you haven't reconsidered our offer. The voice was all too familiar. Perhaps you need more motivation. Your brother is currently walking across campus to his chemistry class. It would be so easy for an accident to happen. Christian took the phone from her nerveless fingers and ended the call. For a long moment, he just looked at her, and Evelyn saw the moment understanding dawned.
How long?
His voice was deadly quiet. 3 months. The confession came out as a whisper. They've been calling for 3 months, threatening my family, offering money. I kept saying no, but they wouldn't stop. They grabbed me last night, showed me photos of Diego, said they'd hurt him if I told you. The words tumbled out in a rush. I was trying to protect everyone. I didn't know what else to do. Christian was silent for so long that Evelyn thought he might explode with rage, but when he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost a protecting me. This whole time you've been standing between me and betrayal, taking their threats, refusing their money. He cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Evelyn Davis, you extraordinary, brave, foolish woman. I'm sorry I didn't tell you.
I'm so sorry. No.
He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You have nothing to apologize for. You were protecting your family, your loyalty. His voice broke. Do you have any idea what you've given me? What you've risked? Evelyn buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, feeling his heart pound beneath her cheek. I couldn't let them hurt you. I couldn't, and I won't let them hurt you or Diego or your mother. He pulled back, his expression hardening into something dangerous and determined. They made a fatal mistake when they threatened you. Christian, what are you going to do? What I should have done months ago. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Victor, it's time. Activate the contingency plan. I want every Lombardi asset frozen, every operation shut down, and find out who's been harassing Evelyn Davis. I want names. He listened for a moment, then smiled. A cold, terrifying expression that reminded Evelyn exactly who Christian Brooks was. No, no mercy. They threatened. What's mine? He ended the call and looked at Evelyn, and the love in his eyes made her chest ache. You're mine, Evelyn, if you'll have me. Mine to protect, mine to cherish, mine to love for as long as you'll allow. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. And I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. I'm still your maid, she whispered, even as her heart soared.
No.
His lips brushed hers, gentle despite the storm raging around them. You're my heart, my conscience, my redemption. Everything else is just details we'll figure out together. And when he finally kissed her, really kissed her, Evelyn stopped trying to be practical, stopped worrying about consequences, and simply surrendered to the truth she'd been fighting for months. She was hopelessly, completely, dangerously in love with Christian Brooks. Christian finally knows Evelyn's secret, but the Lombardi won't go down without a fight. How will Christian protect the woman he loves? And what will happen when loyalty and love clash with the brutal reality of the criminal underworld? Keep reading to find out how far Christian will go for Evelyn. The war lasted 3 days. Evelyn watched from the safety of Christian's penthouse as he dismantled the Lombardi Empire with surgical precision. Assets frozen, allies turned, operations exposed to law enforcement. It was brutal, efficient, and absolutely terrifying. You don't have to watch this, Christian said quietly, finding her staring out the window at the city lights. Yes, I do. Evelyn turned to face him, taking in the exhaustion carved into his features. You're doing this because of me. The least I can do is witness it. I'm doing this because they threatened you, because they tried to use your loyalty against both of us. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms, and because I'm done letting fear dictate how I live. Fear? Evelyn looked up at him in surprise. Of this, of you. His fingers traced her cheekbone, reverent. I've been afraid to want anything good in my life, convinced I don't deserve it, that my touch would corrupt anything pure. He smiled sadly. You proved me wrong. You stood in the face of real danger and refused to compromise your integrity. How could I do any less? Christian, I'm not some noble hero.
I was terrified.
I still am. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Evelyn. It's acting despite it. He kissed her softly.
You taught me that.
Before Evelyn could respond, Victor burst into the room, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Christian's entire demeanor shifted, the tender man disappearing behind the mask of the crime lord. What kind of problem? Carlos Lombardi. He escaped our net, and he's demanding a meeting. Says if you don't show, he'll start targeting your pretty little maid. Ice flooded Evelyn's veins. Christian's arms tightened around her, his body going rigid. Where and when? His voice was arctic. Midnight. The old warehouses on South Branch. He says to come alone, or the deal's off. It's a trap, Evelyn said immediately. Christian, you can't. I don't have a choice. He looked down at her, and the fear in his eyes, fear for her, made her heart clench. As long as Carlos is alive, you're not safe. None of us are. Then take backup. Take Victor and 20 men. Don't walk into this alone. If I bring backup, he'll know I'm onto the trap. I need him to think he has the advantage. Christian cupped her face, his touch infinitely gentle. Trust me, Evelyn. I've survived this long by being smarter than my enemies. Promise me you'll come back. Her voice broke. Please, Christian, promise me. I promise. He kissed her deep and thorough, pouring everything he felt into the connection. Because I just found you, and I'm not ready to let go. Midnight came too quickly. Evelyn paced the penthouse living room, sick with worry, despite Victor's assurances that they had the situation under control. Christian had left an hour ago, and every minute since felt like an eternity. He knows what he's doing, Victor said from his position by the window. Boss has gotten out of worse situations. Has he ever had someone threatening to kill the woman he loves? Evelyn snapped, then stopped, her hand flying to her mouth.
Oh, God. Did he tell you?
Victor smiled. The first genuine smile she'd seen from the usually stone-faced man. Didn't have to. We've known for months. Never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Before Evelyn could process that revelation, gunshots echoed from Victor's radio. All units move in. I repeat, all units move in.
Boss is down.
Evelyn's world tilted.
No, 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 no.
She was running before Victor could stop her, grabbing keys from the table, desperate to get to Christian. Victor caught her at the elevator. You can't go out there. It's not safe. I don't care. Evelyn fought against his grip. He's hurt. He needs help. I'm a trained nurse. I can help him. Miss Davis, let me go, or I swear to God I'll make you regret it. Something in her expression must have convinced him because Victor released her with a curse. Fine, but I'm coming with you and you do exactly what I say. Understood. Evelyn was already in the elevator. The warehouse was chaos. Bodies littered the ground. Men in expensive suits, weapons still in their hands. Evelyn's nursing training kicked in automatically. Her mind cataloging injuries, assessing threats, searching for Christian. She found him in the center of the warehouse, slumped against a concrete pillar, blood blooming across his white shirt. Christian. She ran to him, dropping to her knees, her hands already moving to assess his injuries. Evelyn. His voice was weak, confused. What are you? You shouldn't be here. Shut up and let me help you. Tears streamed down her face as she ripped his shirt open, revealing a gunshot wound high on his left shoulder. Not immediately fatal, but he was losing blood fast. Victor, I need a first aid kit now. She pressed her hands against the wound, applying pressure, her medical training overriding her panic. Stay with me, Christian. You promised you'd come back. You don't get to break that promise. Carlos, he managed. Dead, Victor confirmed, appearing with a medical kit. Your shot got him right before he got you. Evelyn worked quickly, packing the wound, wrapping it tight. We need to get him to a hospital.
Can't.
Christian's hand closed around her wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. Too many questions. Authorities would get involved. I don't care. You need proper medical care. There's a doctor. Discreet. Victor knows. Christian's eyes locked on hers. Evelyn.
I'm okay.
You're here.
I'm okay.
You got shot. The words came out as a sob. You could have died. You almost, but I didn't. He pulled her down, pressing his forehead to hers. Because I had something to live for. Someone to come home to. You're an idiot, she whispered against his lips.
Probably.
He kissed her softly. But I'm your idiot. If you'll still have me after all this. Evelyn pulled back, taking in the blood, the violence, the dangerous world he inhabited. Then she looked into his eyes and saw the man who'd shown her kindness, who'd protected her family, who'd respected her loyalty even when it could have gotten him killed. Yeah, she said softly. I'll have you. Bullet holes and all. His laugh turned into a wheeze. Probably shouldn't make me laugh right now. Probably shouldn't make me fall in love with you, but here we are. The words came out before she could stop them. Christian went very still. Say that again. I love you, you impossible, dangerous, wonderful man. I love you, and if you ever do something this stupid again, I'll kill you myself. I love you too, Evelyn Davis. He said it like a vow, like a promise. I love your strength and your loyalty and your courage. I love the way you refuse to compromise yourself, even when it would have been easier. I love, sir. We need to move. Victor's voice was apologetic, but urgent. Police will be here soon. The next few hours were a blur of movement, doctors, and fear. But through it all, Evelyn stayed by Christian's side, her hand in his, refusing to let go. Dawn was breaking over Lake Michigan when the doctor finally declared Christian stable. Evelyn sat beside his bed in the secure apartment Victor had brought them to, exhaustion pulling at her like gravity. You should sleep, Christian said, his voice rough from pain medication. Can't too worried about you. She squeezed his hand. What happens now? Now, Christian considered, now I finish restructuring my operations. Move into more legitimate business. I've been planning it for a while. But tonight made it urgent.
Why?
Because I want a life with you, Evelyn. A real life. And that means minimizing the danger, reducing the targets on both our backs. He brought her hand to his lips. I can't promise I'll ever be completely clean. My past will always be there, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe, to build something better. What about my job?
I'm still technically your maid.
You're fired? Evelyn blinked.
What?
You're fired from being my maid, but I'm hiring you for a new position. His eyes gleamed with mischief despite his exhaustion. How do you feel about being a partner in my new legitimate business ventures? You be helping run things, using that brilliant mind of yours for something more than cleaning. Christian, I don't know anything about business. You know, loyalty, integrity, hard work, everything else can be learned. He tugged her closer. Say yes, Evelyn. Be my partner in all things. Business, life, everything. What about my family? Diego, my mother already handled. Diego, tuition is paid through graduation. Your mother has the best medical care money can buy. They're both under protection until we're sure the threat is completely neutralized. He smiled. You think I'd ask you to be with me without taking care of the people you love? Tears spilled down Evelyn's cheeks. You've thought of everything. I've had months to think about it. Months of watching you, wanting you, imagining a future I was too afraid to reach for. His thumb brushed away her tears. You made me brave, Evelyn. Now it's my turn to take care of you. I can take care of myself. I know that's what makes you extraordinary. He pulled her down for a kiss that was gentle despite the intensity of emotion behind it. But maybe we could take care of each other. Build something neither of us could build alone. Evelyn looked at this man, this dangerous, powerful, surprisingly tender man who'd somehow become her whole world, and felt the last of her resistance crumble. Okay, she whispered. Let's build something together. Together, Christian echoed and sealed the promise with a kiss. 6 months later, Evelyn stood in the living room of her new home, a beautiful brownstone in Lincoln Park that Christian had insisted on buying for them, and marveled at how much had changed. Her mother's lupus was in remission. Diego was thriving at school, and Evelyn herself had discovered she had a talent for business, helping Christian transition his empire into legitimate real estate and investment ventures. But the best change was the man who walked up behind her now, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing a kiss to the side of her neck. What are you thinking about? Christian murmured against her skin. How 6 months ago, I was just a maid trying to survive, and now. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. Now I'm a partner in a multi-million-dollar corporation, living in a beautiful home with the man I love. You were never just anything. His hands framed her face. You were always extraordinary. I just gave you a platform to show the world what I already knew. You're biased.
Guilty.
He kissed her softly. I'm also right. Evelyn laughed, the sound full of joy. What about you? Any regrets about going mostly legitimate? Not even one. Christian's expression turned serious. I have you. I have a future that doesn't involve constantly looking over my shoulder. I have. He paused, seeming to struggle with words. I have peace, Evelyn. For the first time in my life.
Me too.
She pressed her palm over his heart, feeling its steady beat. You gave me that. We gave each other that. He covered her hand with his. You know what today is? Thursday. It's the 6-month anniversary of the night you burst into that warehouse to save me. The night you proved your loyalty wasn't just to principles, but to me, to us. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. I couldn't let you die. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice. Christian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Which brings me to this. Evelyn's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a stunning ring, a single perfect diamond surrounded by smaller stones that glittered in the afternoon light. Marry me, Evelyn Davis. Be my partner in everything. Let me spend my life proving that your loyalty wasn't misplaced, that loving me wasn't a mistake, that together we can build something beautiful out of the ashes of who we used to be.
Yes.
The word came out as a sob.
Yes. Yes.
1,000 times. Yes. Christian slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that was both tender and passionate. A promise of all the tomorrows stretching before them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless and smiling, Evelyn rested her forehead against his. I love you, she whispered. My dangerous, impossible, wonderful man. I love you, too, Christian replied, his voice rough with emotion. My brave, loyal, extraordinary woman, my heart, my home, my everything. And as they stood there wrapped in each other's arms, with the future bright before them, Evelyn knew that sometimes the best love stories begin in the most unlikely places. Sometimes loyalty and love are the same thing, and sometimes sacrificing everything for someone means gaining everything that truly matters.
The end.
Thank you all for following the story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from and share your thoughts about the story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video as your support is important for me to continue creating content.